feel like everybody in football has their own journey. And sometimes I get this question of, like, how do I become a coach, or how do I become a pro player? Or how do I get to wherever they want to get? And it's such a hard, like, you want to help guide people in the right direction, but at the same time, it's not like a recipe, it's everybody has their own journey, and you can't compare or use someone else's journey because they went through their own obstacles, but their own pathway to get to where they wanted. And I feel like I'm just the same. And as much as I really want to help people, and especially from the Ottawa community, it's like, it's not and I always feel bad because I give them an answer and I kind of think then after and say that answer probably didn't really help them, so.
Well, I think it does, because I think one cool thing about doing this podcast is talking to people like you and finding out everyone's journey, because almost everyone's got some similarities in terms of how they get to where they get to, but also there's differences, because especially being in Canada, where they're just the paths to higher levels just aren't as clear as they are other places. I think it probably does actually help people to hear that no path seems to be the same. So if they're on a path that looks different from everyone else's, that's actually okay.
Yeah, that's the big part. Is it's you put it rightfully so. It's okay that their pathway is not like someone else's pathway. They could still get there. That's the part, that the message that I like to get across to people when they ask me is that okay, well, they're in this environment, they face these challenges, but it's possible still to get to whatever goal they want to get to.
All right, well, let's get right into it. Jay Bhindi, assistant coach for Valour FC. Jay, welcome to the show. Great to finally meet you. Now, I do want to say, before we get going, that I wrote a season preview on apartment613.ca, and I made a prediction that Valour FC, this is really hard for me, but I made a prediction that they're going to finish top of the table by the end of the season. What did you think of that prediction?
It's a very bold prediction, because one thing I learned last year in this league is that the margin for error is so small, and anybody could beat anybody on any given day. And that's honestly, I think, the beauty of this league. You see some leagues that people follow in the world. For example, if a very small team that just got promoted in Spain goes to Real Madrid, more likely than not, if you're going to put your money, you're going to put your money on Real Madrid. But in this league, I find and I lived it last year with Edmonton, is anybody can beat anybody on any given day. So it forces you to be your best every single week. And that's our goal, obviously, is to be the best every single week. And our goal is to meet your prediction and finish first. And that's going to take a lot of work from everybody, and possible, but very difficult.
What I'm hearing is that maybe I should have gone with my heart and gone with Atletico Ottawa, but I'm going to stick with Valour. Valour. It was what my gut was saying at the time, so I'll stick with that for now. But first, I want to ask the question that I ask pretty much all my guests first. Soccer. How did you first get started in the sport?
First, the love of the game comes from my family heritage, which is my family's from Turkey. And my family is very passionate when it comes to soccer, and I feel like I get that in my blood through my ethnic background. And since I was young, I played and I followed the game very well. And when I was young, every year I bought FIFA and played countless hours, and then going to the park with friends, playing on teams, and just watching a lot on TV. So I think the love, if to sum up that question, the love of the game just comes from my Turkish heritage. And for people that are familiar with fan base in Turkey, it's a very passionate people when it comes to soccer. So I carry that with me for the game in my blood.
You said that you bought FIFA every year. What was your first FIFA game?
Honestly, I can remember even when I was really young and not owning, but my uncle always bought FIFA for PC. And I can't even remember how we did it, but we would play against each other, but we only had keyboard and mouse. And I feel like the keyboard was split in half because at that time there was probably only like 4 buttons, plus whatever direction.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that I can remember like FIFA 96 or 97.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Way
my
back.
uncle was really, really big into FIFA, and so I just like when I was young, I would watch him play, and then as I got to realize how I could play, also, I just played along with him, and then it just became a routine as I got older, and I still do it till this day. I buy FIFA every year. Obviously, I play it way more less than I used to, but I remember being up late at night, hours playing FIFA. So that's something that always stayed in a part of my life and still does today. If I have a hour to kill, which is rare, sometimes I'll, especially in the winter and with COVID, it helps me a lot to turn on my PlayStation and play FIFA.
Okay, so playing in real life, I'm like not surprised to hear that you did play. Like what position did you play usually?
So I wasn't a very good, like I was okay, but I didn't play professionally, like a lot of coaches or at the university level, like a lot of coaches have done. But when I was younger, I played mostly as a winger. And then as I got older, I sometimes played into midfield, but I would say majority of the time I played as a winger. And I remember I was just a guy to this coach I had for 2 or 3 years. He was direct balls into the corner, and I would go get them. I was taller, always for my age, so I have long legs, so my strides were long, so I could get there. And then it's just to send the ball in the box type thing.
So when you were growing up, did you have like a favorite team or like a favorite player?
So one thing about me, since I was younger and still till this day, I watch and follow a lot of soccer, a lot of leagues, and people always ask me, what's your favorite team? And it's such a hard question because I like vigorously have always followed a lot of leagues and a lot of soccer in general. If I had to pick one, I go with the team from my family's country in Turkey, and I pick Fenerbahce. This is probably the team that I, as a fan today, can still sit back and watch just as a fan, and that the little boy inside of me comes out. So I'll say them, and I would probably say second to that, that really kind of kickstarted me into really focusing and watching a lot of soccer was Inter Milan in like 2000 to around 2000. They signed two Turkish players, and I just fell in love with it. Was timing, I was kind of at that age where I could really commit to watching sports and following, standings and rosters and things like this. So I would say those two teams. Favorite player growing up, I don't know why, but I always had this fascination for Ricardo Quaresma, and I don't know if it was like his famous always just crossing the ball with the outside of his foot because he couldn't use his weaker foot, and very, very, very tricky and explosive to get out of spaces. And since when he was young, and I followed his career, and again, he had a stop at Inter Milan. So it was like, I guess that's one player that sticks out to me since I was young, and that he kind of like made me fall in love with being a winger also too. And I followed his career through FC Porto, and then small stints in Barcelona, Chelsea, Inter Milan. I guess never really lived up to his true potential, and then played a lot in Turkey. Kind of had like a career revival, and he was a big fan favorite in Turkey for 2 stints, about 3 years each. So football is such a small world.
So you say that you follow like a lot of leagues. Are there any that people might think are maybe a bit more obscure that you follow?
Probably not. I mean, like I follow the Turkish league just because it's my family. We watch and follow vigorously, and I would say in my heart, it's probably the only league that I can, or only games and only league that I can actually sit down and watch just purely as a fan. If I'm watching Champions League or if I'm watching the Premier League, I still subconsciously have that coach hat on of watching, okay, how are Chelsea playing in this game and what are they doing to break down the opposition? But the only league I can watch without that hat and that eye is the Turkish league, because again, the little boy inside of me comes out and just sits there and gets passionate and gets emotional as a fan. But yeah, I follow all kinds of leagues, the MLS, the Premier League, obviously the big leagues, Premier League, Italian league, German league, a lot. I try to keep tabs on a lot of it, and I spend a lot of my weekends watching game after game after game.
And yeah, you said that your boyhood team Fenerbahce. By the way, like I so rarely hear the team name said out loud. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Fenerbahce. Like
okay,
you
Fenerbahce.
said it pretty good. Just the E at the end, you pronounced the
Oh, okay,
E as well.
Fenerbahce.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you had the chance to do like a stint with them. Can you tell us a bit about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That must have been like
2015.
amazing for you.
Yeah, honestly, it was such a cool experience. 2015, I went to Turkey for a month and did 3 kind of coaching education internships in Turkey, and one of the clubs was Fenerbahce, and it was first the little boy inside of me, the soccer fan, was so excited. Wow, I get to be here in the facilities of the academy and meet all kinds of people that work in the club, and players that are up and coming, and coaching staffs. And I learned a lot. It was really cool experience to just be a sponge and learn so much from people that work there that I still speak with today. And yeah, it was a really great experience.
You're still a young guy. Like, how old are you?
30.
Okay. Yeah. So, and yet you've already got like a lot of years coaching under your belt. Like, when did you first start coaching, and like, why was that something that you wanted to pursue?
So I started coaching very young. I kind of, in my late teenage years, 17, 18, I knew that I wanted to get into coaching. I wasn't that guy that said, I want to be a pro and try to go overseas and play, and then if I can't do that, I'll coach. No, I knew I wanted to be a coach in my like I said, in my late teens. And I kind of just at 21 just stopped playing altogether and said, I'm gonna, whatever free time I have, I'm gonna devote myself to developing and learning how to be a coach and coach. So at the end of 2011 is when I first kind of started coaching, getting involved with the Ottawa Fury. At that time, it was the pre-professional stage of the club. So it was still that high performance academy. And I spent hours not paid, just with working with different coaches, being around the facility and staying for, a back-to-back session, and okay, who's on tonight, and just see different age groups, how they interact, and with the, boys, girls, 13, 17, and got to travel on weekends to games as well. So that was kind of my first entry into coaching. And it was a lot of time devotion, but it was something that I was really committed to and really passionate about. I didn't mind giving up a lot of my free time to do that. So 21, I would say.
So I definitely want to talk about your time with the Fury, but first I wanted to ask is because you've had time with Ottawa South United as well. And so you've got experience coaching at that Division 3 level, kind of in the PLSQ, I believe.
And League One Ontario.
And League One Ontario, yeah. So I want to get your thoughts on either like the state of the sport at that level, or like the future, like what you see as the future of the sport at that level. Because, like League One Ontario announced that they'll be introducing promotion relegation. League One Canada was announced for like a more united direction at that level. Like, do you think that those are signs that, soccer's headed in the right direction in this country?
I definitely do. I think programs like the League One Ontario and the PLSQ were something that was important to me as a coach. And after I was finished with my time at the Ottawa Fury, I knew that I wanted to be in professional football as a career. And I knew that I needed to stay around the highest level of play that was accessible for me. And at that time was League One Ontario and with Ottawa South United. And they were, a club that wanted to put resources towards a program like that. And I got to meet people like Dino Rossi, who's the commissioner, Anthony Totera, who was a big part of League One Ontario and the birth of the CPL. And I felt I needed to stay around that environment if I wanted to be involved when the CPL was coming, because, those talks were murmured around for a while before the actual kickoff of the league. And I think League One Ontario definitely played a massive part in what the CPL is today. I remember Anthony Tutera involving me in a League One CPL combine, me and three other coaches across the province that League One Ontario hand selected, and I got to meet people that were involved in the CPL, and I got to see the best players of League One Ontario that weren't signed, and there was a lot of players from League One Ontario that were signed, and I felt like it was a very good foundation, a very good feeder to what the CPL was going to be. And I remember one game coaching with Ottawa South United in League One Ontario, 2018, and Sigma came to Ottawa and they beat us 8-0. And we were a team very young, guys that were just going. A lot of guys were going into their first year at Carleton, 17 years old, and I'm going to tell you some players that were on that team. Tejan Buchanan scored 3 goals before halftime. Tristan Borges, Dom Samuel, who plays for Forge. And there was at least 4 other guys from the starting 11 that were playing in the CPL the following year. So it was pretty much playing a CPL team in League One Ontario. And obviously Tejan Buchanan is Tejan Buchanan.
Yeah.
And so that provided a platform for players that at that time, if you weren't at TFC, Montreal, Vancouver, or the Fury, you had to play in League One Ontario or you had to go somewhere overseas. And people like Chris Manella played in League One Ontario. So I think that was a very good platform for pre-CPL, and I think post-CPL, it's going to be a great platform for young players to get recognition and prove themselves at a very good level. Obviously, with more League One franchises and League One franchises that are elevating the bar for everybody, forcing everyone to become better. People like the project with Julian de Guzman at Simcoe, the project in Peterborough with Electric City, is now forcing the other League One franchise and say, we need to be better also. So it's just elevating that, and it's attracting the best players, I would say, even as young as 16 to however old you are, into one area. And that way you're competing the best against the best week in and week out. They put on a good game day operations with very high standards. And it's an opportunity for coaches as well to prove themselves and to try to make a name for themselves or try to help develop the next CPL player or even beyond. I look at someone like Patrice, who's at Vaughan. The list of players that guy's worked with from that have come out of that Vaughan of the Alistair Johnsons, the Dane St. Clairs, it's only going to get better, and gives an opportunity for players that play in university to play somewhere in the summer, because the University League has its obstacles and challenges. So the League One, I think the League One BC, the way I've been following it, it looks like it's very aligning themselves with programs like UBC and Trinity Western to try to keep the players all together and competing against each other and the platform. And like you mentioned, the League One Canada with CSB, what they're doing, and I think it's going to be great for young Canadians to try to make that jump. It's that gap that was not there before. You went from playing in your local club to, let me see if I can now play in the MLS. But now there's that gap for 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, however old you are, to help develop yourself, get better, and make a name for yourself on a national scale.
So yeah, you were a coach with the Fury for a long time, and that's how you first met Phil Dos Santos, who is a assistant to Mark, of course. Do you remember what your first impressions of Phil were?
Yeah, so Phil came into the academy when the club was going through that evolution from being a high performance youth academy to a professional club, and obviously Mark was named the head coach and Phil was the assistant coach, but also acting as the director of the academy. And when Phil came in, we were all kind of blown away, I would say, with how much he wanted to elevate the standards. And right away he came in with an idea, and was so, you could tell when he would have presentations to us and laying out, okay, this is kind of what the future of this club is going to look like in terms of academy, and this is why we're doing the academy, and this is going to be our methodology and the way of work. We were kind of just like, it's something that we didn't have before. And not just having a professional team, but, having a methodology and a way of work. And me being a young coach at the time, I think I was 24 when Phil came and we first met. I was, wow, I want to learn and be around as much as I can, because I feel like this is really opening up my eyes to another level or another way of thinking in terms of how to coach. And I really believed in, his vision for developing or giving something to the soccer community of Ottawa that didn't exist, a pathway to play for a professional team in your own city, and the layers that come with that of, this is how we're gonna coach the players, this is how we're gonna set up training sessions, this is the league that we're gonna compete in, which was PLSQ at the time, and it was all exciting, and it was a big wow. That was my first impressions.
Yeah, Phil's always good for like a good quote. Does he keep things pretty light, like in the offices and like in the dressing room?
Yeah, look, Phil is he's been experienced. He's worked not just with Mark. He's worked with other coaches at the professional level, and he knows what it's like to be in locker rooms in North America and in these type of leagues, and obviously being around Mark for many years, and everybody knows kind of the man management repertoire that Mark has, that Phil has those attributes as well. And at the end of the day, this is coaching and we can't be robots. So there is time for us to be a bit loose, and nobody wants to be around a robot or a person that's a drill sergeant, and Phil's the type of person that's very serious about what our job is, but at the same time, we're all human, and we interact with people on a daily basis, and we want to build that camaraderie with the group, and that's something that one of his biggest strengths is that man management part of managing a locker room, managing people. And for that, you need people skills. So
you've experienced life as a coach, with the Fury when they were in the NASL. Were you with them when they jumped to the USL as well?
So I left
or was that just before?
Just before I left, yeah, just before that.
Okay. And so you went to Austin in USL, and then came to FC Edmonton last year, in the CPL, and now you're with Valour. So, obviously the NASL doesn't exist anymore, but you've experienced life in the USL as well as the CPL now. And, I think a lot of people, when the CPL was first starting, especially, fans of FC Edmonton and the Ottawa Fury, were, I'll say, like, curious what the differences would be between the USL and the CPL. Would you say that there's any, like, besides the Canadian content and the CPL, like, are there any significant differences between the two leagues?
I would say more or less from infrastructure perspective, because this is public knowledge, but the CPL operates on a salary cap, for example. And roster construction rules are different than the USL. And the USL has had history, like it's been around for a while. And yeah, it's gone under, I wouldn't even say rebranding, but evolution.
Kind of, yeah.
And the CPL, obviously with the pandemic, like there hasn't been much history. Year one had a different structure of the 2-part season, and the playoff was different. And then year two was a tournament in PEI of a handful of games. And then last year was a half bubble, very condensed. And then this year is different than year one because it's 8 teams and top 4 make the playoffs. It's not a 2-part season. So there's no real history in this league, where the USL, there's a history. there's a history of teams like the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, for example, and a Louisville City, and those teams, have there's a Cincinnati that went in and broke records that knocked out teams in the U.S. Open Cup. So there's more historic culture of that than the CPL right now, and the CPL is carving its own path. For example, the USL doesn't have access to the CONCACAF Champions League. The only way a USL team could go is by winning the Open Cup, when they'd have to go through quite a few MLS teams to do that. Whereas in the CPL, you have the winner that goes, and we saw what happened to Forge. They're running the CONCACAF League and then go to the CONCACAF Champions League. So that's a difference, just based on the Canadian League being classified as a first division through CONCACAF, and the USL being classified as a second division to the MLS. So it's a conversation that people like to explore, but it's when you dig down to the roots of it, it's you can't compare the two, because it's just, they're set up just so differently.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah. So the club has two young players from Ottawa, Tony McHale and Matteo DeBrienne. Were you familiar with these players before the season?
Yeah, and the Ottawa soccer, the soccer community in the world is actually very small, but the Ottawa soccer community is very small. So I've known of Matteo and Tony for a long time, just like I've known Kareem Sal from Halifax for a long time, and Stefan Karajovanovic, who was in the Halifax last year for a long time. Abdou Samake, who was in Pacific. So the Ottawa, like I said, the Ottawa soccer community is very small, and you get to know everybody, and those guys know me as well. So it's just you along your pathway, you come across players that make it to the top. I worked at L'Oreal in the Sport Études program, and I got to work one season with Jonathan David. So the Ottawa soccer community is so small that you come across everybody.
So you also do video analysis for Valour, and like I know lots of the diehard fans like to consider themselves like pretend scouts when they're watching games. When you're putting together like a video package to analyze, can you put us like in the headspace of a coach? Like, what kinds of things are you looking for?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question, because I get that a lot. Video analysis is something that I actually started to do it with the Ottawa Fury. Again, I was when Paul Dalglish came in. There was an assistant coach / video analysis that was also brought in the name Nikola Leposavic, and he came from Serbia, and he just came fresh off winning the U20 World Cup with Serbia at that time, and he did a lot of the video analysis stuff for Paul, and me being the young ambitious guy I am, I said to Nicola, I said, "Hey, can I sit beside you while you do this and just learn?" It's a part that I never got to explore, and I want to explore it because I want to work in professional football one day, and I want to have a multi-skill set. And he was very open. He said, "Yeah, okay, come." And I worked with him and just watching him, and then he had to leave for personal reasons back to Serbia. And while Paul was trying to fill that role, I filled that role on an interim basis for 6 games, putting together analyzing the opposition and putting together video packages of them and video packages of our post game for Paul. And that kind of was like my first introduction to video analysis. And I said, it's something I'm going to keep in my back pocket, because I want to be marketable as a coach. I want to be able to sell myself with multi skill sets. And then for Austin, I did the same. I did opposition analysis and video analysis for them. And it's part of one of my many hats that I wore in Edmonton, and same in Valour. And everywhere I've went, it's been different, because different head coaches have different styles and how they want to use video. Some coaches want to use it more. Some coaches want to use it less. Some coaches want to use it in a certain way. Some coaches just want to use it for individual players. Some coaches want to use it for team meetings. So everywhere I've gone, it's been different, and that's allowed me to just grow in that skill set. And especially in leagues where you don't have millions of dollars of budget where you can hire so many people to do so many jobs. You have to wear multi hats, and that's an example in Edmonton and Valour that I had as part of my role, is to do anything revolving around to video and opposition and stuff like that. So it's all depends on what the head coach wants to use it for. I'll use an example from Ottawa. Paul wanted to do video sessions based on the opposition on a certain day of the week, and wants to do our post-game video sessions the day after. In Austin, the coach only wanted to do videos for the opposition. He didn't need to do video for the game a post game, for example. He was and especially it's the USL, very connected. We're moving on. Some coaches, for example, in Austin, not every week at halftime we showed a video clip, because halftime goes by so fast that there's not much time to show 4 or 5 clips. So maybe some weeks we use 1 clip at halftime. Maybe those weeks we use none. So it's very dynamic. It's very dynamic. And you also got to know your time reality. If you're playing Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, there's not a lot of time to cover everything video wise, because if you want to work on the field, or vice versa, maybe you want to do more video this week because it's such a heavy week on the legs that you're not going to go on the field and do 90-minute training sessions every day. So it's a very, very dynamic role, if that answers your question.
So you've been coaching a long time, and mostly in Canada, sometime in the States, but mostly in Canada. You've coached a lot of younger players in different systems. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about how we develop players in Canada, what would it be?
I think one thing, and I learned this lesson from Phil actually, and then I saw it come to fruition, was access to high-level competition. And I'll give you the example. So when I was working with Phil in the academy of the Ottawa Fury, we put our 2 academy teams, so our U17 team, which is made up of 15 and 16-year-olds, and our U19 team, which is made up of 17 to 20-year-olds, or 19-year-olds, sorry, in the PLSQ reserve and the PLSQ senior. And that was a way for them to compete against the best players of Quebec at the semi-pro level, and have a proper calendar structure. So, for example, every week you're getting a game, whether it's home or away. That there's a table, and if there's a playoff format, for example, that we're 6 points behind. We have to make sure that we're going on the road to the first place team. Do we have to adjust? Do we have to adjust? The how we press. For example, I'm just throwing a hypothetical theory, but all those things are part of player development. If you don't have a proper access to a good competition that you're playing week in and week out, with a table, with points, with going on the road, with playing at home, you're missing that key component of competition. And to say that a player is going to go through his youth and not have that, and then suddenly become a pro and learn what it takes to fly to Halifax and play in Halifax on grass in a maybe a game that you're chasing for the playoffs, and a draw won't be good enough. It's not true. It's that's something that's, you can't ask the player to just switch it on. So I think, to answer your question, is access for everybody across the country. This is not just it's easy in Toronto, but there's a big country. There's Winnipeg, there's Saskatchewan, there's all places. And obviously BC has caught on the train of the League One Ontario, or the League One BC, sorry, is giving these players access to a structured, high-level competition. I think that's going to be huge for the next step of the growth of this game in this country. That's going to become super, super important, because at the end of the day, when you step on the grass, you're competing. It's a competition. When you step into a season, it's a competition of however long your season is. And like I said, if there's top 4 make the playoffs, you got to learn how to cope with that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I think one thing that, I think people are noticing is, with these League Ones, and the PLSQs, there's more I think there's getting to be more opportunities for players to shine. And, for the people paying attention, like there's more players who are kind of getting more of a chance to make a name for themselves, and maybe fewer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe fewer players kind of falling through those cracks that used to be enormous.
Yeah, I think it's huge. Look, if I'm going to think of players that were part of that group in Ottawa that we went to the PLSQ, and people thought we were crazy, and even the other teams in the league in the PLSQ thought we were crazy playing 16-year-olds. But I think, and especially me knowing those kids, and they're men now, I think of names of Gabi Batar, Stefan Karajovanovic, a lot of guys that are in the Carleton Ravens program. These guys all were a part of that PLSQ team of young kids competing week in and week out, going to Blainville, and you're up for a fight in Blainville. And sometimes, they had good crowds there of 200 people, for example. And here we are, 16-year-olds going and competing. And I'll use the example of Stefan Karajovanovic, who was very young at the time, and I think the year after he won an award from the PLSQ and went on to have a very good U Sport career, and now is with the reserve team of Toronto FC. So I think if you ask those players, was playing in a high level structured competition against top level players week in and week out for points, home and aways, did that play a part in where they are today? I think the answer would be yes, because they learned a lot. They learned a lot going to Blainville and getting kicked by guys that are 25 that have played professionally or aspiring to be pro or in good states in their careers. So,
Jay, you've been extremely generous with your time. I really appreciate it. I just have a few quick questions for you before I let you go, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. What's your favorite sport besides soccer?
Oh, tough one. Quickly, off the top of my head, I'm going to say basketball.
Okay. What is your favorite soccer field in Ottawa?
Ooh, George Nelms Park.
Okay. I had a feeling.
I have to give it to Jim. He keeps the grass there very good.
Okay, right on. Who has had the biggest impact on your career so far?
Phil Dos Santos.
Okay, because he's listening. So
I'm not sure if he is or not. So me and Phil, we kept in touch since Ottawa. We always he's someone that really mentored me as a coach and as a person during our about 3 years together in Ottawa. And he was one of my biggest coaching mentors, taught me a lot about everything about who I am as a coach today. So I always kept in touch with him on a professional level, but also just on a personal level. And we would exchange texts or phone calls and throughout his journey and the odd times we would meet up. For example, when the Fort Lauderdale Strikers came to play the Ottawa Fury, we would, maybe grab a coffee or I remember there was a time when they traveled to Montreal when he was with the Whitecaps, and we met in Montreal just to have a quick coffee. So we always stayed in touch, and he's someone that I really admired because the impact he had on me as a coach.
Who is the best player that you've ever coached?
Best player I've ever coached. Wow. Is it going to be fair if I pick like a guy that I coached at professionally?
I mean, did you technically coach Jonathan David?
I was the head coach of his Sported team, so yes, let's say Jonathan David.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. That's should be a no-brainer.
What's the better halftime snack, oranges or watermelons?
Ooh, watermelons.
Okay. So Winnipeg, your new city here, is known, I found this out yesterday, as the Slurpee capital of the world. That's a true thing. Do you have a favorite Slurpee flavor?
You know what? I'm that guy. When I used to get Slurpees, I would mix the flavors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I would mix, the blue and the red. Or
okay.
I would put all three, the green, and I would just mix a contraption, and it would always taste good. So I mixed them.
Okay, I like it.
I didn't know about the Slurpee capital, so I'm gonna go out and get a Slurpee.
Apparently that's a thing, like midnight runs to get a Slurpee in Winnipeg. Apparently that's a thing. Yeah, I had no idea. Another thing that I found out about when I've been to Winnipeg, I did not know about these things. So honey dill sauce was invented in Winnipeg. So
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So you're having a night out, it's 9 p.m. and you're hungry. Would you rather have some chicken fingers with honey dill sauce or an Ottawa shawarma?
Oh, Ottawa shawarma by far. You know what? You know what? Out of all the places I've been to in my journey as a coach, not even close. And I have this conversation with Tony all the time. Not even close. Nowhere compares to Ottawa shawarmas. Not even close.
I mean, that's what we're the capital of. Ottawa is the shawarma capital.
I try to explain that to people, like when I was in Edmonton, and they're like, "No." And I tell them, "Trust me, it's a different.
You can just get shawarma at any time of day. It's like the one thing,
and it's the best.
Yeah,
hands down the best.
So you've had a little bit of time in Winnipeg. Who has the better weather, Ottawa or Winnipeg?
Oh, Ottawa. But to be fair to Winnipeg, from my colleagues Damien and Patrick, who are from here, they say this has been the worst winter they've ever seen in Winnipeg. So but I always tell them I can only go off by what I've experienced, and the weather it's been a really bad winter here. So I'm going to say Ottawa.
Well, maybe after the summer, I'll ask you again and see if it's the same answer.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. You're picking players for a game of pickup. Are you picking Phil or Mark Dos Santos?
I don't know. I don't know. But if I gave you the answer, what am I basing that off of?
I mean, I suppose you got to pick Phil because he's your boss. But all things equal,
I'm gonna say Phil because I work out with him. We work out in the gym sometimes, and he's a machine. So I'm gonna say Phil.
Okay. And last one. If you could choose a country outside of North America to coach, where would it be?
I'm gonna be biased here and say Turkey. As cutthroat as it is, I'm gonna say Turkey.
Okay, right on. All right, Jay. That's all of the questions I got for you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I listen to this podcast when I can, and obviously been following it since the beginning. So,
well, thank you. That's really nice to hear. I appreciate that. Now Atletico Ottawa takes on Jay Bhindi and his Valour FC on Sunday, April 24th at 3 p.m. Jay, I hope you understand that well. I hope Valour has a bad time on Sunday afternoon and loses. Otherwise, I really do wish Valour, and especially you, the best of luck for the 2022 season.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate your prediction comes true, or I hope your prediction comes true.
If it can't be Ottawa, I'm willing to say I really hope it's you and Valour.